Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Bitcoin Prediction. Hope you like this episode. Currently you're seeing audio stereogram, and if you're able to view this in 3D, if you're able to parallel view or walleye view, this is a little different. This is there's actually no, well, there is floaters, but this is called a random dot stereogram. I'm literally taking random, not random, but I'm taking pixels and I'm moving them around to the point where it creates a 3D image. And so that's what I'm doing with this. It's a little different. It looks a little bit better. You could kind of see the 3D-ish. It's a little different than what I've been doing. So I hope you do enjoy this stereogram. Again, if you need to, if you don't know what an audio stereogram is, you need to just look it up. But it requires no special tool or equipment, just the way you look at things, very similar to the magic eye. Usually random dot is something that you would use in a hidden image, but what I've been doing is making a non-hidden image and I'm making it 3D. The 3D is right here if you're parallel viewing. So anyways, I'll get into this later. Let me go into something else here, which I want to talk about. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about today. A lot of stuff. Okay, so rolling in this episode here, Monero versus Dash. This is also another audio stereogram here. But Bitcoin Prediction 25, Monero versus Dash. I had Roland Kriv. I talked about, I don't know if they have paper wallets, and they do have paper wallets. So he gave me some directions on how to open. He would donate 0.1 XMR, which is Monero. And basically, if you know anything about Monero, I don't have the Monero client. I don't have the Monero wallet downloaded on my phone or on my computer. I choose to use a paper wallet. And so because of that, there's some limitations. I won't know if anybody sent me any Monero because I don't have the client. I don't have the wallet itself. And it's different than your Bitcoin Explorer or your Dash Explorer, your Block Explorers. It's a little different than that. But anyways, in order for me to know if anyone actually sent anything, they have to provide me a transaction ID. Okay. And let me compare a little bit, and I'll show you Monero's Explorer, in which I use that transaction ID. I looked it up, but this is what it tells me. Confidential transaction. Now, all Monero transactions are confidential, so you're not going to be able to see anything. See, so I got 0, 0, 0, 0 input, 0 output. Even though he gave me the transaction ID and everything, I think there's a few more steps that I need to do. Anyways, he gave me he told me to go to xmmonero.com and let me compare. So this gives me a chance to go to my donation page here, and I will refresh this. Okay, and no new Bitcoin donations. You see I got 4. This is okay. So this is my QR code if anybody wants to donate any Bitcoins. As you can see, I received 4 transactions. It used to be 11 something. Now it's 12 something. As you see, the price of Bitcoin has gone up. And I'll show you an example here. I think this was worth 496. Now it's worth 537. These were all 250. Now they're worth 285 and 287. And this is the one I put in for 90 cents, and you can see it's gone up 16 cents. So that's awesome. So this is a block explorer, or I use blockchain.info as an explorer because I like the way they do things. I do not use the blockchain info wallet. Remember, this is a paper wallet, so I don't have to download any kind of wallet. I generated a paper wallet. And so I could just simply look it up like this. But then again, all of you can look it up. But that's why I'm showing it to you. This is my donation page where I ask you, the viewer, to donate Bitcoin if you're generous enough, and then I'm going to share it with everyone, and we'll see how it goes. I also have the same thing for Monero because someone wanted me to wanted to donate some Dash. And if you're like me and you don't want to download like 5-10 different like wallets, one for Dash, one for Litecoin, one for whatever altcoin you have, although some wallet providers are now providing multiple coins on their single wallets, but I think that's still, I think there's a market to that, but it's still new, and I personally don't like using new software, especially if I'm going to be the beta tester. Let someone else be the beta tester. I'll just use a paper wallet. So anyways, I did get a, let me refresh this here. Let's see if any more donations. No, I did get a third donation here. It doesn't have a QR code like a Blockchain Explorer, but simply it works the same way as a Bitcoin Block Explorer. And as a matter of fact, the only thing I don't like about this, okay, is that it doesn't show the QR code like it does on the other one. So here's my QR code for Dash, and I know it works because this is the only way I give it, and someone's been able to scan it, that's for sure. So there's my QR code, and if you want, you can type in the actual address key. But anyways, there you go. Thank you for putting up with that. And then let's go to, I think I showed you Monero, and hold on. Since now I got Monero, I will also show my Monero address key. And there it is. There's my Monero address key, and this long thing, I don't think you can even see it. Anyways, this long thing on the bottom is the actual address key. I don't think you want to write that down. It's probably way easier to scan the code. So this is my Monero, which I generated the paper wallet. And okay, thank you for putting up with that. So let's go back to this thing right here. So he gives me directions and tells me what to do. The transaction ID is what you need, and also you need one more thing. Where is it? The private transaction key. So you also need the private transaction key. In my case, because I don't have the wallet, I have a paper wallet which I have to use the Explorer. So it is possible not to download the Monero wallet client software. Well, anyways, and still be able to use paper wallet. So let me get into that here real quick. And so I did look it up based on that transaction ID. So here's the transaction ID. You just put it in the search. Oh. Okay, so you put it into the search, and then there you go. So you put it into the search, and then once you do that, this comes up and it gives you the inputs and outputs, but it doesn't tell you anything. So there's a couple ways. If you're a third party, there you go. So if you're a third party, you can essentially look up this right there. So that's what you could look up. So if you're sending to me, you give me the private transaction key, not the private key. There's a private send key, is what Monero calls it, to send your Monero. This is the private transaction key, all right? And then you put in the address. So if you're a person, a third party, you have to have a private transaction key, and then which is this thing right here. there, the private transaction key right there. That's it right there. And then your Monero address, the Monero address that it was supposedly sent to, and it'll come up. If you are the recipient and you don't have the client, you don't have the Monero wallet, you have a paper wallet like I do, you go to decode. It's kind of turns black, but decode outputs, and then you put in your Monero address, and then you put your private view key that came with your paper wallet that that was generated. So you had a private send key and a private view key, and then you had your public address key, and then the 25-word seed. So you put I put my Monero address and I put my view key after entering in this transaction ID. There's a lot more steps to Monero Explorers and using a Monero paper wallet. Anyways, eventually what I got was it brought me to this here. So I simply used the decode output. I simply use that because it's my wallet, and I know the private view key. I just needed the transaction ID for the most part. So the other part here, this one, when you use proof send, this is something like a third party would need to see. Like, well, I'll give you an example. Monero is used on the dark market, right? So if there's a dispute on the transaction, a third party could be given the private transaction key and the recipient's Monero address. So they would get the private transaction key from, let's say, someone who sent the Monero, and then if there was this dispute from the person receiving the Monero, they would have to provide their address key. Okay, they would have to provide their address key, and if it matches up, it matches up. If it doesn't, then something's wrong. Somebody's lying. That's for sure. So if one person is able to provide an address key and the other provides a different address key, something's wrong. So the address key has to match, and then there's a private transaction key to view the transaction, to view it. So that's if you're third party. But then again, if you're receiving and you're the party, you would just use this. You put your Monero address in here, and then you put your private view key, as long as you have the transaction ID. And so it looks like this. So I use the decode output, and even if you decode the output, the only thing you're going to find out is that you receive 0.1 Monero, which is true, and then all these other outputs, they produce 9 other stealth keys, which you don't know which one's the real one. There's 9 of them, and if you're going to follow all of them, I mean, it just really obscures the transaction. So it's a big mystery of, this is something I don't think you can, it's hard to track. And again, the downside of it is, unlike a Bitcoin address like this, where you can see, anyone can see, even Dash, it's kind of easy. Something like this is definitely easier to use than this or this, and I can't even view my total holdings because I have to actually download the wallet in order to do that, and that only comes basically from Monero, or the Monero development team. And so thank you very much for that 0.1 Monero. I appreciate it. Oh yeah, let's go to, speaking of donations, if you, okay, hold on here. Okay, here is my Monero address key for anyone who wants to donate. And I guess if you want to let me know, you have to provide that either a transaction ID or the private transaction. Hold on here, So you're going to have to provide the transaction ID or the private transaction key for me to know that it was sent. Anyways, anybody who has Monero, feel free to donate. Here's my QR code from Monero, and then I have a Dash paper wallet as well. So here's my Dash Explorer, and then here's my Dash public address if anybody wants to send Dash. And of course, this is real easy for me. Just blockchain already has a QR code. Feel free to donate over there. So, okay. So, anyways, let's go back to this. It says xmrchain.net. So, looks like this is something that I guess I'm familiar with. I'm able to use it. I can somewhat understand it. But I'm not sure how well I'm going to be very fluent in this particular block explorer and in Monero use. It is a little complicated. If you're worried about being tracked, if you're worried about privacy, Monero seems to be very, very good for that. The drawback for me is it's a little too much technology for me to comprehend at this moment in time, because I've never had to do anything like this. I don't buy from Alphabay, and you know Monero is being used as a darknet coin, and so if you're gonna do that, it would make sense. I don't know if people are paying in Monero. I definitely do believe people are using Monero for the darknet markets. It makes perfect sense. I think they're using Monero as a way to jump chain jumping. In other words, getting on the Monero chain where you can't follow it, you can't track it, and then jumping out of Monero chain back into Bitcoin to cash out eventually. And so there's still some several weak points. Exchanges are weak points. So if you're a Monero user, in other words, you trade Monero, most likely you're being watched. You know, on whatever exchange out there, whatever exchange is using buying and selling Monero, it wouldn't surprise me that you know, they're getting subpoenas to track your transactions. They want to know where you're logging in from, at what time, things like that. So there is a weak point there. Now, if Monero can create a peer-to-peer market, then that would make it a lot better. The downside is, again, you will be tracked physically in this physical world. You know, wouldn't surprise me if they're already tracking Bitcoin users, Bitcoin sellers, and Bitcoin buyers, because eventually all Monero and all these altcoins will go back to Bitcoin somehow, and that's where people are cashing out. That's where, you know, I've said in my previous videos, it's these coins are no good unless you can use them. So, anyways, there's something about Monero a little too complicated for like the average like Bitcoin user, I would say. You know, especially when I'm used to something like this. You know, where it's just I can see my balance. All right, I don't need a wallet. So, anyways, it does have its uses, and I think it will do well. So there you go. Now let's go back to the artwork. Wait a minute. Okay, hold on. Okay, let's go back to the artwork. So you're probably wondering, what is this all about? Excuse me. So let me get in here a little bit more closer. So everyone's worried about Trump, and I recently had a chance to watch Charlie Lee talk with Adam Meister on his show, where he talked about Litecoin. So you know, I've heard and I've seen Charlie Lee talk about Litecoin and segregated witness and what he has in mind, but to watch it on Adam Meister show, it was fun. It was also he has a chat box right there that you can, you know, chat on and have some fun that way. I did chat a little bit, and then after the show he chats a little bit after that. So I'll talk a little bit about that. I'll talk little bit about Trump and the wall that he wants to build. And if you know what this is, that's another wall that was built a long time ago. And then, of course, China is in the news as well. The People's Bank of China has had a closed door meeting, quote unquote closed door meeting, with the I think the three major Bitcoin exchanges in China. And so you'll see the Bitcoin Moon here, or the Bitcoin Sun, I should say, and then Litecoin, the Bitcoin Moon, and somehow China is related into this. And then there's Trump. Trump is in 3D. Again, this is a random dot stereogram. So basically, it's a little different, but this is a younger Trump in 3D. And then that's Charlie Lee, and that's also 3D. The rest are these are floaters. These are here to make this particular image, and here, the 3D image. And you can see it's Trump is coming out, Charlie's coming out. This portion of the wall is kind of coming at you. This is kind of coming out, but you notice that you get to see into the picture. You have some depth. You see the trees, and you see the tower, and of course the moon, the Litecoin moon, and the Bitcoin sun. You'll see into the picture, and you'll see right there. Anyways, so let's go over some things. First of all, Charlie Lee, that I saw on Adam Meister's show. It was a good show. You know, he's really subdued. It's the first time I ever seen him on a live show, and so he does look pretty young. He's looking younger. Of course, some pictures on the internet make him look kind of old and a little overweight, but maybe he's gotten back into shape. What I did notice is that he did have some kind of talking points, like notes that he wanted to go over. I think he already had in mind what he wanted to talk about, and so there's that. And he mentioned something very interesting. He mentioned a couple things that I want to bring up. If you've seen the show on Adam Meister, I would highly recommend you go there and take a look. He talked about building bridges between different blockchains with segregated witness and the Lightning Network. So if Litecoin and Bitcoin adopt segregated witness and utilize the Lightning Network, they'll be able to build a bridge between the two blockchains, and you may be able to exchange Litecoin for Bitcoin and Bitcoin for Litecoin and back and forth. So I thought that was huge. I think that gives the ability to take some of the transactions off the Bitcoin blockchain and onto a Litecoin blockchain, where I think by itself it's pretty quick, 2-minute block times, a lot more Litecoins, so a lot more availability to the general public. I know it's all perceptual, but you know, it's easier for someone to get one Litecoin, or at least cheaper in US dollar terms or Chinese money, to get one Litecoin than it is to get one Bitcoin. You know, but anyways, it's all perception. But I think this concept of gold and silver is it's doable, it's workable, and I think it's an easy transition from people who are already used to this concept of gold and silver to make that transition into cryptocurrencies. So that kind of concept, I think it's going to go well if it works out. The other thing, and it seemed like Charlie Lee was trying to allude to this without directly saying it, but he mentioned in the interview with Adam Meister that the Bitcoin dominance, he feels, is much larger than that, because you can go through hundreds of millions of dollars in Bitcoin and kind of move the price a little, or not even move the price. But if you do the same thing as with all these other altcoins, even though they have a couple $1 million in volume, if someone really took the same volume as they did with Bitcoin, it would drastically increase the price. I think what he was trying to say was Litecoin has a very thin market, and it would be very easy to pump up the price of Litecoin before segregated witness takes adoption. And I think that's what it's trying to say without saying, hey, pump up the price of Litecoin. That's just me, but I could be wrong. But go ahead and watch this video. And so that's the reason why I have Charlie Lee in here. He's part of what I wanted to talk about in this particular episode. He was on Adam Meister's show, had a chance to listen and get some good knowledge, get some good feedback from Charlie Lee. And that's why you'll see the Litecoin, and it's in 3D. It's a sphere. It's a Litecoin chain, as representing the moon, I guess. And I hear Litecoin is big in China. I don't know how true that is, but it seems like Litecoin is big in China. That's what I've been told by Charlie Lee. I've heard that from him. So, and then of course, Bitcoin is always going to be around. Bitcoin in China. And so let's go on to Donald Trump. Why do I have him in here? Well, I think a lot of people are worried about his immigration stance, the wall that he said he was going to build. It seems like he's taking a lot of action to do some of the things that he said he was going to do. And I think also he was going to start taxing remittance back to Mexico. So I think Litecoin and Bitcoin will become a bigger use case, especially if this whole segregated witness is adopted between Litecoin and Bitcoin. That means if they're able to build bridges between the two blockchains, and you can interact with both blockchains, Litecoin won't be interacting. You'll be able to. Litecoin will always be Litecoin blockchain. Bitcoin will always be Bitcoin blockchain, but there'll be a way to possibly trade or move your coins between the chains, convert Bitcoin to Litecoin without going through an exchange. That's what I'm trying to get at. And again, probably any fork of Bitcoin who adopts segregated witness, because anybody can adopt segregated witness. Any fork of Bitcoin can adopt segregated witness and the Lightning Network. So now you'll be able to fully decentralize. You won't need an exchange. I think exchanges are the weakest point. So that's interesting. Now, if you're not a fork of Bitcoin, I don't know how that's going to work. If you'll be able to build a bridge between your blockchain and other blockchains. So this is kind of exciting to me. I never thought of it this way. I don't know about the code or the software. I'm just hearing what Charlie Lee said, and he was saying that there's possibilities of building bridges between different blockchains where you can transact cross blockchain. And I think that's huge, because that means it will be a decentralized exchange. So there's that possibility. So Trump, if he's going to build a wall, and this is what, if you know what this is the Great Wall in China. China built a wall. I don't know if it helped, but it definitely made people feel good. Now, if Trump's going to build a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border, I would like it to be something like this kind of a wall, because I think it would be a great tourist attraction. You know, China has a great wall. Well, America now has a great wall. And it would be great if we can get some international travelers coming to this wall that Trump's going to build, and people can go to it, and hopefully they'll make it something like this, where people can walk along the border between U.S. and Mexico and see the sites. On the U.S. side, I would imagine U.S. side being on this side. There could be like hotels and stores and whatever, probably warehouse packing, and wherever you need to cross a border, they would have something big like this where you can, I don't know, maybe it could be a hotel. Who knows? I mean, maybe the wall won't have to be paid by Mexico. The wall is a tourist attraction. And then on the Mexico side, you could have the drugs, the pharmaceutical drugs, maybe hospitals. Hospitals are probably really cheap in Mexico. Pharmaceutical drugs, of course, your illegal drugs, and probably human trafficking. They're all right there on this side of the border. And if you want if you want to like hire some. Now, this is if you're legally documenting migrant workers. You can just go to the border, and then there'll probably be hotels and conventions and maybe like a big park where people just stand around waiting to get to be hired, is what I'm thinking. And people can go there, and then they could just say, hey, I want you, and you, and you, and then on their way back to the U.S., they could just document the workers and then bring them back, just like that. So there you go, perfect. Anyways, uh, I'm just kidding, okay? But my point is, this is kind of being silly, but at the same time, there's some truth to my silliness here. Look at China's Great Wall. Now imagine America's Great Wall. I think in the end, it's just going to become a tourist attraction. Give it a couple hundred years, but anyways, Bitcoin and Litecoin. No matter what wall you build, Bitcoin and Litecoin will be flowing back and forth. Nothing's going to change. I would assume Bitcoin and Litecoin will be heavy in demand as soon as these walls are being built. Restrictions on remittances. Already there's some immigration restrictions, and so I think this is a big deal for cryptocurrencies. Now you'll be able to send money back and forth without the fear of being taxed on that. The fear of being monitored, the fear of being rejected, the fear of being caught. It's so much easier to use cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Litecoin. So, anyways, I'll spend a little bit more time on a chart analysis, because I know a lot of people someone can want a chart analysis, so I will give you a chart analysis. And here you go. This is on the hourly, and I drew a line, and let me, if I could pull back. I drew two lines actually. Let me go back on the weekly. So I drew a line from the top of this high to this recent uptrend, which I will get to right about here. Barely shows. So this is the line that I drew from that bottom point to here. So, and this is the all-time high. I guess I could draw another line for the current high right here, right about here. There we go. Okay, so here's the chart. Let's zoom in. I'm on a 12-hour, and I'm going to pull this, and there's a time frame from here until that time, which is what, the 24th of February. So now until the 24th, you have some timeline in which this is going to crash or go up. If we extend it out for the all-time high, it doesn't really go up, but I'm assuming right about here, the 27th. So you're looking at the 24th, which is right about here, the 27th, which is right about here for the all-time high, and I'm on a bit stamp. Of course, I'm on the 12-hour now. So you can see this is where it hits, goes up sharply, and it's still moving on the shorter term average. And then if you look at this, the longer term on the 12-hour is moving in line with this trend line. So I think you should focus on this trend line right here, because you got the longer term average aligning itself along this trend line. So look for that. It should come sideways for a while, hopefully bounces off this, and then does another push, breaking the all-time, hopefully. So that's good. Of course, recently, if you're watching on the hourly, if you see it went up to 1070 and then dropped down. This was the announcement of the People's Bank of China having private meetings with the three large exchanges in China. Private meeting. I'm not sure what they want to talk about, but I guess worried about money laundering. That's always the case. Worried about money. I think what they're trying to say is they're worried about people making money off of the way Bitcoin works. Because if you're trying to devalue your currency, the price of Bitcoin remains deflationary. If they're calling that money laundering, then I guess the whole world is laundering money. uh, or I would say retaining your hard work and your value. That's not what the Chinese government wants you to do. They want you to lose value in your money so you keep working. So, this is my opinion, okay? The reason why there's no longer quote unquote slavery is because now you're being forced into a form of slavery, but you're being tricked into doing it. You think you got money, but your money isn't worth anything. That's why you have to keep working, because that money becomes useless, becomes less valuable. You could buy less things with it because the price of everything else has gone up. If you have Bitcoin, and I'll just go into my little rant about Bitcoin now. So I'm going to give you here's my donation page, as I talked about. The 4 donations that I received total up to $11 and something, but because Bitcoin has gone up in price, I'm receiving $12. Like, let's see, what was my first donation? This is one I sent at the time to test the wallet. I put in 90 cents at the time. Now look at it, 16 cents. That's what is that? A 15 or 14% increase. And when did I put that in? January 25th, 2017. This is my first donation, $2.50. Now it's worth $2.89. And when was this? January 26th, 2017. So you see how that works? Bitcoin being deflationary. Anyways, so that's what this was. This was China, and I don't know. I think China's having less and less effect on the price, because if you pull back to the 12-hour, you see that little red candlestick? That's the price drop right there. So it's not a lot, actually, if you see that it bounced off of the shorter term average. So I don't think it's a big deal. I think it's just a little blip. Well, I think it's just a price action movement is all it is right now. It's not like this. This was when it was announced that the People's Bank of China made a visit to these exchanges, and they were going to stop margin trading. They were going to stop the no fee trading. So the zero commission trading, no fee trading is over, and margin trading is over as well. So let's go on to a $1. I mean, not $1, 1 day, and take a look. Yeah, still looking strong. Still going on. Still moving on that shorter term average right there, and you can see the longer term average is moving in line with this trend line. Things are looking good. It's still very bullish. On the 3-day, you can't even. There's nothing here, and you see the shorter term average is moving in line with this trend line. You can see that. See the average line moving in conjunction with that. The only problem I have is I see this kind of what they call shooting star, and that usually represents an end of this little up movement right here. But again, has to be confirmed. So you have to wait for that candlestick to finish, plus maybe 2 to 4, sometimes 5 other candlesticks to confirm it. So on a 3-day, it takes a long time. And then on the 1 week, it's moving along this trend line. Not quite. The averages are still pointing up. The shorter term average is starting to move in conjunction with this trend line. Looks like it's starting, but they're both pointing up. Both very strong. And then look at this. Look at this. Look at this big bowl shape. Look at this big bowl shape. So look at this big bowl shape, and then just imagine this and visualize this, and it's easy to see that it's gonna, it's not enough room here for me. Shitty camera. Anyways, you can imagine that the price is gonna do this. Okay, it's gonna do that. So you could kind of imagine that. So, anyways, this concludes my episode. Let me go back to this. So a lot of things going on here, and my target price is still the same. My prediction for Donald Trump's wall is that in the end it'll become nothing more than a tourist attraction. People will flock to the wall, cross the border, back and forth. Nothing's going to be that much different, in my opinion. The only difference is now we're going to have a tourist attraction, and so China will have a Great Wall, and America will have a Great Wall. Anyways, this concludes my episode. My target price for Bitcoin is still, so we're already at 1,000, so we'll go up to 1,600, and then 1,600 to 5,000. Anyways, this concludes my episode. Feel free to like, dislike, leave a comment, even do a video response. Until next time, stay tuned. Bye.